David Broder, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, national correspondent for the Washington Post. He joined the Post in 1966 and quickly became one of our most respected political journalists. And since then, week in, week out, year in, year out, he's earned that respect, commanded that respect over again. Most of you follow Mr. Broder's column from the Washington Post. It's in our own Ann Arbor News. Some of you, most of you will know him from NBC's Meet the Press, where in August he made his 400th appearance, eclipsing by far any other guest on that distinguished program. And in my own household, where 8 p.m. Friday for years has meant Washington Week on PBS, and at one time meant leave Dad alone right now, I confess that I always give a silent cheer when I see that Mr. Broder is one of the guest discusser panelists. And this being a university campus, it's also a pleasure to note that Mr. Broder is a tenured professor at the University of Maryland's College of Journalism. David Broder covered his first presidential campaign in 1960, and for decades he regarded it as the best campaign he ever saw, but not anymore. That distinction now goes to 2008, he recently wrote. And now, to hear more about that, I present you with Mr. Broder. Thank you very much for coming. It's a great honor.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate your welcome, and I really am delighted to be back on this campus. I came here the first time, I think, in that 1960 campaign, and have been back many, many times since then, and I really look forward to the conversation part of our evening this evening. It is a great honor to be here at the Ford Library. I've covered 11 presidents now, and without any qualification, I would say the one who was the most genuine and appealing human being of all of the 11 was your own Jerry Ford. He never changed once he went behind the fence at the White House, which is remarkable because something about that location really does tend to bend most of the occupants out of shape in one way or another. But he had the character and the Midwest values so down by the time he got to the White House that he was absolutely immune to that kind of folly or fantasy or whatever the right word is. But I valued my friendship with him and Betty Ford, and I really am honored to be here in his library this evening. I was asked to talk a little bit about this campaign that we've just finished, which I'm very happy to do because, as David said, it turned out to be an absolute barn burner of an election, and a wonderful one to cover. At one point this past summer, I said to Don Graham, my boss at the Post, I would have paid you, Don, to cover this one instead of the other way around. And he said, well, I'd like to take you up on that. on that. You know what's happening to newspaper budgets these days. But what made it special was, I think, several things. One, the simple cast of characters. The candidates that we had, particularly at the start of this year. It's hard to remember back, but when this year began, there were 10 or a dozen people running on each side, and they were not slouches. This was a remarkable group of men and women running this year in both parties, and it clearly was partly that attracted so much enthusiasm from the voters. I think it was also the fact that this year, like 1960, people knew in advance that thanks to the Constitution, we were going to be choosing a new president. And when you have that anticipation, there's always an additional element of excitement about who is going to come out of this as the new president. But without trying to go back and rehearse the whole process, which I don't want to take the time to do, I think it's worth spending a few minutes just on the three people who ultimately came to dominate this year's political news: John McCain, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. I've known John McCain since he first came to the House of Representatives from Arizona, and like every other reporter that I know, have been intrigued by and charmed by that wonderful man. We all knew the story of his captivity and the courage and absolute unbreakable spirit that he demonstrated in those 5 years that he was locked up in Hanoi. But we also know that as a member of Congress, and particularly in the Senate, he was perhaps the paragon of what it means to be an independent political force, and did so in a way that